you went ahead and took a shot with Justin Rose?
I do every tournament. You know that.
Every tournament you take him.
Yeah, he's my. I mean, it used to be Oosthuizen, and then he doesn't play anymore. You know, my basic theory is like I hate to bet the favorites.
If Scotty Scheffler won 9 tournaments, which he did last year, but you would be barely breaking even with him if you bet him in every tournament. Barely breaking even if you bet him at 4-1 or less.
This is why my
he won
hope
9 times, an incredible 9 times.
This is why my hope is that there will be some member of the Augusta police force who looked at Scotty Scheffler and sees a man for who he is, which is a scumbag who drags cops behind his car for no reason and shoots Scotty Scheffler in the parking lot like he deserves. That would be the best outcome for those of us who did bet the dentist, is if a cop takes revenge for his brother law enforcement who got dragged behind a car by Scotty Scheffler last year. Unfortunately, they've switched the Doral event to a Live Tour event because I was fully prepared to go there and plant some crack in Scheffler's rental car, and they call the cops and tell them I saw him selling it at a school zone. But
the time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
That's the way to do it. Your money for nothing and your chicks for free. Good morning, everybody. Good to be with you. That's the way to do it, is it not? Mike Lubie Lubitz, welcome to the show, and thanks for getting the memo about the All Black. It's like we're in mourning here, and we shouldn't be because we're on in the morning, MORNING, instead of with the U in there. And we might be in mourning if things had gone differently, but wow, what an opening statement, an opening salvo fired off by the defending Stanley Cup champions. We were waiting for this series. It seemed to be the most attractive of the series that were going to be contested in the first round of the Stanley Cup chase. Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning, 2 teams that hate each other, as evidenced. Who's the guy, Hagel, from the Tampa Bay Lightning, that as soon as he sees Matt Tkachuk get off the bus, he wants to punch him in the face. Dropping the gloves. I think they dropped the gloves before the game even started. It was one of those things like the old days, Louis, between the Detroit Red Wings and the Colorado Avalanche, when those 2 teams were arch rivals, and they would drop the gloves. The official hadn't even put the puck. It hadn't hit the ice yet, and they're already fighting everybody, including the goalies. That was always great. And there's some of that in play with Hagel and Tkachuk, who returned for the first time after that Four Nations tournament. He's been out since February 8th, tallies a couple of goals, and what was supposed to be a nail-biter of a series opens up with a Panther blowout as they win it going away, put the game away in the second period, 5-2 after 2, 6-2 is the final, and the Panthers win the first one on the road in the Stanley Cup chase, which, again, is as wild as anything that you can get. Good morning, everybody. Great to be with you here. A lot of sports to follow, Mike Lubie Lubitz, and we have a lot of ground to cover here. How are you, my friend? I don't know. I would imagine you were immersed. I saw some text exchanges with you and one Jim Sarney, who was probably watching Marlins baseball, which what we do have to say, if there is a giant surprise in Major League Baseball this year, is it not the Marlins at 11-12? The Marlins.
Honestly.
You'd figure they would be lucky to play .333 baseball at any stage of the season. And here they are hovering around 500, having won 3 in a row. So that's been a pleasant surprise. This guy, Agustin Ramirez, was called up, played his first Major League game on Monday, had a couple of hits, and 3 for 3 last night. So I believe he's 5 for 6. That equates out to .833 for the season. Not too bad, but so much action to follow. I don't know. I guess we can begin right here in our hometown with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Panthers. More impressive than I would have anticipated, though, Lubie. I was thinking this would be a nail-biter. Maybe the Panthers suffer a close loss, and instead they come in there and just annihilate the Tampa Bay Lightning. So series far from over, but a nice way to start out your defense of the Stanley Cup Championship.
Yeah, look, I watched bell to bell. I watched every minute of it, and the Panthers started a little slow offensively, but their defense was great all night. They ended up with only 16 shots, but they scored 6 goals on those 16 shots. And they weren't as aggressive on offense as they had been a lot in last year's Stanley Cup run, but their offense was smart. They after the first period, they really controlled the puck a lot of the second and third period, and their defense was smothering. And Bobrovsky, as we've seen, look, if the defense is bringing the action, Bobrovsky's really good. Like, It's when he faces a ton of shots, a ton of action, and maybe that's any goalie that he sort of becomes a sieve, but he lets up that second, that third goal, and they're in trouble. When the defense is aggressive and they're bringing the forecheck like we've seen in the last 3 playoffs, they're really tough to beat. And it's what I said yesterday. It's like, look, when they have Kachuk healthy, when they have Ekblad, there's a reason that it was the Capitals and them for the Eastern Conference, and most people had them as the favorite up until like the last the last month, and then Kachuk is out, Ekblad suspended, and I think they're missing like 3 other guys. Like they were the walking wounded. But what's interesting is I wonder, because a lot of times you don't in other sports, but hockey's weird in the sense that home ice only matters so much. This team's now been to the Stanley Cup Finals the last 2 years. Maybe they're not the Warriors yet, but they have a lot of veterans. They have a lot of experience. And we've seen injury really bite this team, that it didn't feel like they rushed Kachuk back. Like Kachuk looked really healthy for the kind of injury he had. Ekblad supposedly, and it was a suspension with him, but it's saying he's the healthiest he's been in years. It's almost like they're like, look, we'll take a 5 seed to be healthy, because they looked ready to go in a way we haven't seen them at the beginning of a playoff run.
Don Cherry, Doc Emmerich.
Yeah.
They have nothing on you, Mike Lubie. Yeah, so I love that. That was astute, concise, spot on hockey analysis. Just absolutely incredible. Nice job. And that gets us ready for what should be a long run, or so we hope. But
I hope. Oh my
1-0
God.
Florida Panthers in their series last night. That doesn't guarantee that they'll be anywhere but even Steven as they come back to their home ice. And as you said, home ice doesn't seem to be a huge factor. Oh, well, we saw that last year in the NHL, and we've seen it in previous seasons. It's nothing like the home court advantage in the NBA. There were a few other games last night. The hockey playoffs off to a rocking start.
Yep.
Carolina, which is always my sleeper team to win it all, even though I never mention it this year, but I'm going to go ahead and throw them in there since they're up 2-0 in their opening round series. Seem to have all of the cards that they need to beat the New Jersey Devils. That one shifts back to New Jersey for game number 3. Carolina 3-1 last night. They were down 1-0 in the game and came back, rallied for the next 3 scores. Toronto, this was wild. What's Domi? Is that Ty Domi's son? Domi on the Toronto Maple Leafs? It would have to be, wouldn't it?
It has to be Domi on the like. It feels like it just has to be.
But from what I can make of it, and I haven't seen a lot of this kid. I've seen him before, but only in spots. I don't get a lot of Maple Leafs hockey to consume. And he scored an incredible overtime goal, this guy, Domi. Ty Domi was not a scorer. I don't know. Did Ty Domi ever have a goal?
I presume.
All he did was come out on the ice, and it was funny because he was like a squatty-looking guy, about 5'7", and he would take on these guys like Probert and some of these other monsters. I don't know if he was playing at the same time, but he would take on whoever the other team's enforcer was. It went from being a goon to an enforcer to being a consideration in terms of something that you wanted on your team. I mean, could you imagine Peter Worrell skating for the – well, he didn't really skate. Could you imagine Paul Laws? I guess he could do a little bit when he was the enforcer and the goon for the Florida Panthers. But the goon essentially is gone, is it not? I guess the Rangers have that kid. Is he still on their roster? They're not in the postseason, so hard to find. But they have that one guy that gets suspended every game, and as soon as he comes back, he knocks the guy's head off with his stick and gets another suspension. Fairly popular player. You just don't see it as much as you used to. Ty Domi, of course, that was all he did. And he would take on virtually anybody. It didn't matter. He was that little guy that would go ahead and say, go ahead, try me. But his if that's his son, incredible goal last night. Great. You see the athleticism and some of the amazing moves that these guys are capable of making. Loses the puck. It sort of slips towards the center of the ice. He's kind of in the slot there, and then boom, gathers himself and fires a shot. So Toronto goes up 2-0 in their series, hotly contested there against Ottawa last night. Oh, were they up 2-0 in that game? I don't know, Lubie. I think they might have been, and then got caught by Ottawa.
I think so.
All right, and then Minnesota evens up its series with Las Vegas, home ice advantage, meaning nothing there. As Vegas dominated. Well, they didn't really dominate the first game. That was a wild one. A lot of things changed in terms of betting, Lubie. I know this is always your first concern, but if you are going to watch these games, you may as well have a little action on them. Yep. And there was a goal scored with 1/10 of a second to go in that first game between Vegas and Minnesota. And that not only gave you're laying a goal and a half if you're in certain betting aspects in hockey. You have to win by two essentially. It's the old you win by two thing, like they used to have to decide tennis
21.
tiebreakers and sets, and it would go on forever, right? Who could forget Nicholas Mahut and Isner playing 733 games to decide the fifth set at Wimbledon that one year? The thing took 4 days. It was ridiculous. But the over under what was I think 5.5 in that game, and then Vegas ended up getting the nod, scoring more than 2 goals than Minnesota, all because of this goal that went in, and they had to look to the Zapruder tapes to figure out if it actually beat the clock in regulation. So that was kind of crazy, but Vegas won that first game, and Minnesota comes back. The Minnesota Wild 5-2 over Las Vegas last night. So a lot of interesting hockey action. Game 2 tomorrow for the Panthers and the Lightning. And are we talking, Lubie? Dare we say it? If you're a Tampa Bay fan, shades of the opening round series against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and one very same. Who's their biggest nemesis? Could it be Sergei Bobrovsky? Everybody always talks about Vasilevsky. I mean, if you look, the guy, he's got an incredible, impeccable resume, I guess, of sorts. Is it impeccable? No, that wouldn't be the right way to, because he's had his times where he slumped. But I would imagine a lot of people when they did the box, like who has the advantage, coaching, goaltending, forwards, defensemen, whatever, probably checked Vasilevsky over Bobrovsky. Is that possible, Lubie?
Bobrovsky is
Dueling
a
Russians,
winner. Bobrovsky isn't a winner. Bobrovsky is one of the best goalies in the world, but I know he supposedly struggled last year, but up until last year, and then again this year, Vasilevsky and then Shesterkin were always the two that people talk about. And the Rangers sort of fell off this year. Vasilevsky, I supposedly watching last night's game, they talked about how last year he struggled, but this year he was the best goalie in the world going into the playoffs. His goals against was nuts, and the fact that he gave up all 6 goals.
He barely stopped every other shot, man. I mean,
yeah, it was like almost a 700.
6-for-16 is like Luka's shooting percentage last night.
Yeah.
Look at that. So a horrendous, a sieve-like performance by Vasilevsky, who I would imagine most of the hockey experts had the check mark there over Bobrovsky. NBA action, the Lakers, wow, I mean, this was a strange game, huh? They're up 34-15 after a quarter. You're thinking they're going to rout the Minnesota Timberwolves, who gave them all they could handle. Actually, the Lakers spurted out to a quick lead in game number 1 and then fell apart at the seams and were dominated from that point on. This time, they do lose the remaining 3 quarters by a 10-point margin, 70-60. But how do you go from scoring 34 in the first quarter to 60 points the rest of the game, Lubie?
Yeah.
Wow, what the hell is going on there? And yet they win handily and cover the point spread as the Lakers win by 9 over the Timberwolves, even up their series at 1 apiece going back to Minnesota. I don't know. Is this an aberration? Is Memphis that bad? We know that they staggered their way into the finals here, or into the postseason through the play-in tournament. We're a team in turmoil. Oklahoma City now, I mean, they win this one by 19, and they have a combined 70-point margin in the 2 games. They won the first one by 51. So, and most people are of the feeling now, and it's common narrative, that Oklahoma City is light years better than anybody else in the West. And it's going to be Chalk City with Boston and Cleveland competing for the championship in the Eastern Conference for the right to go out and get clobbered by the Oklahoma City Thunder. We shall see. That team is lightning fast, Lubie. Have you watched a little Oklahoma City? I watched some of this game last night in the very beginning. My goodness. I mean, when they get out on a break, you turn the ball over against Oklahoma City. It's like one of those things where you see the Budweiser guys that use the trampoline to dunk, and they're doing all kinds of crazy circus passes. It really does look like the circus broke out. It's incredible. So fast getting up. I mean, look, NBA teams are fast in general when they're out on a break. It's not exactly like watching the league we were talking about when I was in that 40 and over league at the Jewish Center there, David Posnack. You didn't see that kind of speed out there in a fast break. But wow, I mean, that was impressive. They could have been running 40-yard dashes at the combine.
Yeah.
Flying up and down the court. Pretty incredible. And the Indiana Pacers easily handling Milwaukee, 123-115. Damian Lillard did come back But the word on that ball game was it may be a nice infusion of some scoring punch and somebody that can help offset what Giannis Antetokounmpo has to do in terms of output. But defensively, the Milwaukee Bucks happen to be a sieve, and they give up a buck 23 last night. So they're down 2-0 and appear to be very much primed. Are they not being warmed up for? They're at the TSA and they're getting checked out. They're going to fly right through without any problem through security because it does look like they're going to get out of that series maybe in 5 games at the most. What, 6?
I mean, yeah, that's a mess. Like if the Bucks lose, and the Pacers are a solid team again, like we said yesterday, they were in the conference finals last year. But the Bucks with Dame, with Giannis, should win that series. And I get it, Dame missed game 1. He comes back in game 2, so you're hoping he's more himself in game 3. But I don't know. Like that's a weird series, and I feel like that could be a big deal for the rest of the NBA. Like if the Bucks lose in the first round, like this is now 2 or 3 years in a row. Like ever since they won the title, they haven't done anything in the playoffs. So they went and got Dame and were sort of worse. So I'm curious what they do with that, because a lot of people have said, I heard Chris Haynes the other day, who covers NBA pretty well, say if they lose, he said before the conference finals at least, that there could be a major shakeup with the Bucks. Because and it makes sense. Like what again, the NBA doesn't reward one and done, like going to the first round to lose. Like, so you're paying Giannis a lot of money, you're paying Dame a lot of money to lose in the first round. Like you could lose in the first. The Heat are gonna lose in the first round, not paying Giannis or Dame. So
I need to trade Connaughton or whatever that guy's name is. The guy that always wears the leg warmers. Doesn't he look like the NBA player you would hope to be? Where you're just a nondescript white guy. You come out there, you do a couple of things, shoot a 3 here and there. And Max Strus is probably more active with Cleveland than this guy is. All right. We have a big agenda today. We'll get into more NBA stuff with Scoop Skolnick, who's going to join us about 8:45, so about a half hour away. Scoop Skolnick of 5 Reasons Sports Network. And as we say, and we witness this and experience it every time, do we not, Lubie?
Yep.
Every time we have Scoop on, you're not thoroughly amazed at what this guy knows about. And never mind Windhorst, this blowhard.
Yeah.
Hendrick Perkins. My authoritative voice on NBA basketball is Ethan Scoop Skolnick, and he's going to join us later on. He's got the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and they have to be obsessed.
Oh yeah,
I don't want to zero in too heavily on the Heat, because it does appear that the Heat's fate is sealed, is it not?
Yes.
They're losing to Cleveland. They're not getting out of the series.
Oh no.
If they do, what would we have to do? Do we take one of those daredevil bets on? If the Heat win this series against the Cleveland Cavaliers, now a lot of stuff can happen, right? Watch this. We'll see. The Cavs suffered 2 key injuries, and the Heat are alive. I will jump with you in tandem off the Acapulco cliffs. I'll do a swan dive right into that deep hole there.
I don't see them winning. I don't want to risk life and limb.
Donovan Mitchell gets hurt. What happens? Do the Heat have a shot?
We'll wait till then.
We want to risk that level of. Obviously, you talk about sealing your fate. What would be the chances of either of us surviving a dive off the Acapulco cliffs?
I don't know. Even
if you went straight in, legs first, it's not happening, Lubie. Imagine trying to do a dive. That would be crazy. Some little Mexican kid gets up there, no problem. He does 3 somersaults, 2.5 twists, hits perfectly, no splash, tides timed perfectly. You and me, Lubie, 2 Jewish daredevils, forget about it. Not happening. But I don't see him getting out of that series. So we'll try and expand the horizons there of that conversation, because Scoop, no doubt, is zeroed in on the Miami Heat. But their only hope is what? That Milwaukee loses. The guy says, hey, we got to blow this thing up. Giannis to Miami, and bingo.
Yes, the Giannis thing seems somewhat possible right now, as it didn't like 4 months ago before Dame got hurt. We'll see.
Big Possum with a very astute observation here. The bigger risk would be me in a Speedo. You can't be wearing like cutoff shorts if you're diving the Acapulco cliffs. You have to have like the slick bathing suit.
For sure, yes.
All right, draft is coming up. We'll get into that. I want to get into a little bit of that right now with Old School with Tony Segreto. We welcome Tony into the program. He joins us every Wednesday, brought to you by Texas Roadhouse Restaurants. So I wanted to get into some tales of the draft.
One second.
Yeah.
Hey, Lubie, can I have your dog if you die?
Oh, yeah. Yes. You have him on a slab?
He's strong, though. He's strong. So, if I do pass, I wish you luck. He's a lot of exercise. You have to walk him like 5 times a day because he's incessant. But sure. Yes.
What would you be willing to risk, Tony Segreto, in betting
Nothing
against the Heat
They're not
beating the Cleveland Cavaliers in this series? How far are you willing to go? Never mind money. Money's not enough in this case.
Okay, money's not enough.
No, you would have to do
They're not
something that would be very challenging for you to,
Jesus.
have a favorable result at the end of it.
Wear
I
Gator
go
gear.
ahead.
Tony would wear Gator gear and proclaim the Gators the greatest program in Florida history.
There you go.
He hates it.
He would dress as Nick Saban on Halloween.
No,
He doesn't hate Nick
No?
Saban. Remember, he likes Nick Saban.
Oh,
We
you
like
like Saban? Wow.
Remember, he broke it. Saban amateur. We remember.
Oh, you were talking about how he related to the kids and
Like
he's
Saban.
interested in the
The
academics.
Gators are the only hatred it feels like he's consistently had throughout sports.
there it is. I would.
All regalia. He's got to wear the whole thing, and he's got to be very positive about the Gators.
You
The
know,
whole
You
I
have
do
to speak at a Gator rally.
Yeah.
You have the stature to be
with
invited.
Steve Spurrier. With Steve Spurrier. He and
I happen to end up liking Spurrier.
I like
That was
Spurrier
a weird
now.
thing.
There'd be Urban Meyer. It would be like
Yeah.
with Urban
Urban
Meyer.
Meyer. You and Urban Meyer have to have dinner together at Texas Roadhouse.
that
How would Ed Garcia feel about Urban Meyer showing up at Texas Roadhouse? One of his restaurants, too, not someplace in Ohio.
Oh
That'd
my
be wild.
God.
All right. Well, we just, I mean, the Heat, look, they're up against it. They're going against the number one seed. Teams have been playing great all year long. They found a solution to, when you find one play that works all the time, isn't it great? And
Yes.
I mean, they used a few variations, but essentially they were saying, let's get Tyler Hero and a guy he can't guard, which is pretty much everybody on the floor. And it was unfortunate because I'm a big Tyler Hero fan, but wow.
Yeah, he can't guard anybody.
Clearly exploited. All right, we want to get into some draft memories here, Tony Segreto. I'll never forget a few. The draft meant nothing like my whole life until I came to South Florida to cover sports. And it was one of my early assignments when I finally, I got a job fairly quickly after arriving here at a reasonably decent level platform, 940 wins. They were a respectable all-news station. They send me out to St. Thomas to try and get some insight and some sound bites post-draft. And I'll never forget this one. It was like maybe my first year covering a team when remember there was no information, nothing being broadcast. Were you out there when the Dolphins drafted Mark Duper? Were you on the scene?
Yep.
You were at St. Thomas that day? Because I remember being out there.
Yep.
And St. Thomas was a dump of a facility. I
Yep.
told the story many times about the first time I pulled in there. I thought, oh, geez, man, how effing lost am I? This cannot be a facility that a pro team uses as its practice facility and its headquarters.
It was pitiful. It was really what Shula did with that and made it into something great was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah, and I remember that, you used to have to wait for the reaction after you got the announcement of who they picked, but it wasn't public knowledge even right away. So all the reporters were kind of sitting around by that draconian locker room there, and which wasn't even. I don't think the ceiling was over 6 feet 5 inches high because half the people had to bend down like they were going into that place in El Salvador, the prison there, just to walk around the locker. No, I mean the facility wasn't commensurate with housing. It was good for like a 10-year-old and under kind of a situation. Anyway, so I remember that they come back out and they announce that Shula had selected Mark Duper from, I believe it was like Northwest Louisiana State.
I think you're right.
Northwestern State, I think it was in Louisiana, right? Which is his home state, Mark Duper. And no one had ever heard of Mark Duper. And I remember the buzz among the people there who all of a sudden, of course, had become experts on the draft was that, oh my God, the old man is losing it. This is 1982.
Oh, geez.
This guy's a track guy. What's he ever done? And there was this great mystery as to why Don Shula selected Mark Duper, and it just illustrates how little we know about the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Even years later, there's no way to quantify it because, of course, Duper went on. He was a second-round pick, had a brilliant career.
A great career.
and with Mark Clayton. Should they be lumped together in that Wall of Fame, or should they
Oh
not?
yeah,
Do they not deserve a
them-
separate distinction?
they should be put together in that Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame. See, now Clayton has credentials to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know that Duper does because Clayton did a lot of the dirty work underneath there as well.
I just
Duper was
think,
pretty much
I
catching
just think
bombs.
you can't say one without the other.
I loved them both. I mean, how exciting was it? You got Danny Boy throwing a rock. You had a respectable enough offensive line.
My greatest story in the draft
Yeah.
was that Shula drafted a quarterback. This is when they had the crowns. They built the field with the crown on it. So when they went to the Orange Bowl, they would still have the crown. So Shula drafts a quarterback. I don't even remember the guy's name. And I said, Coach, what are you doing? What does this guy bring to the table? And he's going on and on and on. I go, okay, Coach, he lasted 12 rounds. No one drafted him. There's got to be something wrong with him. He goes, well, yeah, he has a depth perception problem. I said, a depth perception problem. Yeah. He goes, yeah, just a little one. I said, a little or not, isn't that going to affect how he's going to throw the ball down the field?
Like Vinny T being colorblind that they discovered.
Exactly. My God.
I thought you guys were the guys in green. What are you talking about? First round pick that year was Roy Foster, our good friend Roy Foster. Mark Super Duper going in the second round. It mystified everybody. Everybody was stunned. They had no idea what this guy was.
That was a hell of a draft.
Yeah, it ended up okay. And it was one of many drafts that stands out for me in terms of my involvement in local Miami Dolphin coverage. But every team has their share of victories in the draft, guys that you didn't expect. I mean, look, Zach Thomas, a fifth-round pick. That was a pretty incredible move on the part of Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy was the one guy, though. I don't know. How did you feel about that? Did Jimmy – he might have overcooked it once in a while and outthought himself, but for the most part, I don't know that anybody was more aggressive.
No, he was
more assertive in terms of the draft, and especially after the first round. I mean, he was extremely effective.
He was really good. I have great respect for Jimmy, and his Shula didn't like him, but Jimmy's got a way about him that he can spot talent from a mile away. He can spot potential a mile away, and he worked not so hard. The Shula gave the impression that Shula was the greatest who ever lived. Shula would work and work and work and work and work. Jimmy would come 6:30, 7 o'clock. See you later, out the door.
Well, yeah, he was just getting back from the blackjack table in the Bahamas. It was great. All right, we're going to be joined by Ed Garcia of Texas Roadhouse Restaurant. See if he can provide us some draft insights here, because this Michigan guy.
There's a lot to be said for Shedeur Sanders.
Well, and that's the big debate. There's always some story that dominates Super Bowl coverage, draft coverage. This seems to be the one, and no surprise. Certainly, Deion Sanders is always going to gather some kind of a spotlight, so his son doing the same. From what I could gather, though, I mean, I've seen interviews with Shedeur Sanders. I thought the kid was great, just well-grounded, seems to, do and say all the right things, have a reasonable approach, humble by comparison to his father, even though very confident. No, you're shaking your head, Louie. What are you? I'm making you sick with this. Look at that.
Arrogant. I mean,
he hates Sanders. How could you despise Deion? He played baseball for you at FSU. He played football for you. He could have played basketball too if they let him.
No, he's a jerk off. He's always been obnoxious, and I've never been a fan of the obnoxious, arrogant piece of work.
That's not my style either, but nonetheless, I think Shedeur is almost the direct opposite, the polar opposite of that.
We just have heard different from interviews, and I get it. NFL teams say stuff. Maybe they don't want other teams to draft him. Maybe if he goes high, then that will explain a lot of it. But we've heard multiple NFL teams say he's extremely arrogant. And
really? Okay, that could be. Maybe I misread this.
What's been heard now the last couple of weeks, that's quieted down, and because he had fallen down the draft board, now he's rising back up. I don't know. We'll see.
New Orleans Saints, number 9. How do they pass on Shedeur Sanders? How do they pass on this kid? They have nothing. Derek Carr out for the year, it looks like. Maybe finished altogether. All right, we're going to come back with more. We'll see what Ed Garcia, big college football guy, so we'll see what he has to say about some of this stuff. And then I want to share some draft day stories with one Tony Segreto as well as we continue all school. And then right around 8:45 this morning, we'll have Scoop Skolnick, so we'll dive into the NBA with Scoop Skolnick.
You got a full agenda today.
It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff, Tony. So less that we have to come up with on our own. All right, we'll be back with more in a moment. Now that it's 8:31.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453.
What we gonna do right here is go back, way back into time.
We are now kicking it old school with the one and only Tony Segreto. Brought to you by Texas Roadhouse.
All right, welcome back to the show. We've got Ed Garcia from Texas Roadhouse Restaurants joining us. Of course, proud sponsors of Tony Segreto's Old School. Mike Lubit's up there in the corner. I'm Jeff DeForest, and good to have you guys with us. Ed, how are you, my friend?
Good morning. How are you?
Doing all right. How much of a draftnik are you? Are you a draftnik at all? I always thought it was really overblown, and it was the most glorified example of choosing up sides that you could have. And then over the years, though, I don't know if this is the Miami influence or how heavily we had to cover drafts because of the curiosity about it, and it continued to grow over the years where now it's a 2-day television event. But how into the draft are you? How closely do you follow it, if at all?
I do follow it a little bit. I mean, I find it interesting. The impact is, never super immediate. It really just helps a lot of the people, just kind of look at their vision, what their teams are going to look like down the road, and get a couple people excited, get a couple people mad, and hey, and it's a great thing for sports publicity.
Hey, Ed, where are you, by the way?
I'm actually in Miramar, about to run into the restaurant. So I'm like right across the street, hanging out, not far from University Parkway? I don't know. I'm here in Miramar today, so I'm just chilling in the hotel room, getting ready to rock and roll.
Nice.
All right. Now, as you look at the players that are available here, it appears a certainty there, Tony. Your man, unless you have other inside information. Cam Ward is going to go number 1 at Tennessee, and that's with a lot of logic behind it. As their quarterback star, this Will Levis was not somebody that you really want operating, the key position in your offensive schemes. And so that's a set in stone thing. Now, you were talking about Shedeur Sanders. What's your thought? You watched a little Colorado football. You had to see highlights, Ed, of Shedeur Sanders. I don't know that you have the same acrimonious feeling that Mike Lubitz has about Dion. I never liked Dion after he poured that beer over Tim McCarver's head. And I'm not one to, the self-aggrandizing guy, that's constantly beating his own chest and talking about how great he is. I'm not a big fan of that in general. I like the humility of like a Roger Maris or something a lot more. But
Roger Maris.
Yeah. Well, what's your thought, Ed, about Sanders from what you've seen? Should some team, are they going to be disappointed that they didn't take him, or is some team going to be saddled with a brick for some time to come because they moved up and took him high in the first round?
Well, I don't know if he'll even go top 10. That's just I know he's probably like third right now, and the Giants are probably looking at him, big picture wise. But if they do, they're going to have a little bit of a break. It's going to take a long time, I feel like, to develop him. Unique program, did get a lot of great publicity. I'm from the school of Barry Sanders. You can't go wrong with Barry. I think Barry was the ultimate versus Deion Sanders. So I'm kind of on the same boat with Lubie here. When it came to talent and humility and just absolutely kicking ass out there, I'd go with Barry. But I don't know. He's got that same cloud over him that JJ McCarthy had last year.
That's
And he's got a lot to prove, and that's for sure. Shadur's got an uphill battle.
I agree with you, Ed. He's got an uphill battle because he's got to shed his father's.
Yep.
He's got to shed his father's image. It's different.
I don't know if that's possible, Tony. You know how big that image is? I mean, holy Lord. The Colorado expanded the doors just so his head could get in there. So
It's big. It's big. But if anybody can do it, Shador will do it.
Yeah.
But he's there's something about him that just intrigues you to say, well, do I take the role or not? And that's it.
Hey, if he goes high up in the draft, good for him. I mean, that's just a bigger paycheck. Why not?
Riley Leonard could go higher than him.
Yeah.
There's a chance.
Riley Leonard has no arm, though, Tony.
Well, I know that, but I'm saying to you,
zero. He's got a rag arm. He really does. Remember, he used to sit at Marklight Stadium, and those two guys used to sit next to the booth there where you were doing a broadcast. There was
rag
no
arm.
rag arm. The whole freaking game. That was, you started saying it yourself as part of the broadcast.
Then
here's Kenny Henderson. He's a rag arm, but I wasn't impressed with Riley Leonard's passing. Any quarterbacks, Ed, that you saw that? I mean, people are talking about Jackson Dart. I don't know, Lubie. You've got
I like Dart.
Scoop on this. What do you think? Anybody that you saw that would eclipse what Shador said?
I mean, I'm really excited to see Cam Ward. I'm also, excited. I feel like we're going to see two Michigan guys, go in the top 10.
Yeah.
Mason Graham, I think he's going to get picked up by the Jets pretty quick. So that's going to be pretty exciting. And other than that, I don't know. It's going to be anyone's game. Once we get past that, like that first 12, I think it's really going to get dicey. I think what's happening before was just very, very predictable. And I think that the owners and the coaches are looking at strategizing a little bit more. And they're not just looking just as a pick, but they're looking as a pawn that, hey, they may not even last a couple games or might be used as an immediate trade down the road. Hey, take this piece because Lubie needs this guy over here, and I can take this and trade it for this guy. So I don't know. That's the cool thing about the draft, but we'll see how that all works out.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Ed, because I could take some guy that Defo wants, and Defo wants a guy that Lubie wants, and they can trade each other, and then I can get that player back.
Right.
But there are so many different movements here in this draft that this draft to me is boring.
Nah, there's not a lot of stars.
Yeah,
like 3.
Not a lot of stars. Next year could be good,
Yeah,
but this year's draft is who is going to take player X on the board?
The two big stories seem to be, at what point does somebody take Sanders after the one certainty seems to be Cam Ward? And then what position will Travis Hunter play?
Yeah.
Which, where would you play him, Ed Garcia? I mean, the guy's equally talented, gifted at both wide receiver and defensive back. Let's say that's a given. That his skill set is the same there, and how it translates out to being a pro. Where would you rather have a guy like that?
I don't know. If I was Cleveland, I would bring him in as a wide receiver. And you know what? He can line up as a cornerback here and there, but I think his talent is catching that ball. He's got a pretty good lateral, I feel like, for the most part. And, I'm for sure he could take out the 4 of us. So that's where I would go with it.
I'd go as a defensive back because it's harder to play that position.
Yes.
And most teams need them.
Yes.
And if he fails there, they can always put him at wide receiver. So I draft him as a defensive back and keep the wide receiver stuff, off in the corner until you need it.
Yep.
Lubie sees the mock draft being busted up right away, at least the one I'm looking at here, where Ward goes number 1 to Tennessee, and then Cleveland blows it completely.
Yeah.
Blows a layup, and nothing coming after him. They have all day to go ahead and make the pick and take Travis Hunter, number 2.
Yep.
And instead, they panic because they have no quarterback, and they get Shedeur Sanders.
That's such a Browns move.
That, you know,
I don't know. Well, what team do you
It's not a-
trust?
They drafted Colt McCoy. They drafted Johnny Manziel in the first round. Tim Couch, number 1 overall. Like they get and he looks good in a Bucs uniform, but they didn't give him a chance.
Yeah.
Mayfield, like the Browns get weird when it comes to quarterbacks, and they now have the Browns and the Dolphins the last 2 decades. The Dolphins now have stuck with Tua for a few years. The Browns haven't had a quarterback. Literally, they gave a boatload to a dude that was in the middle of controversy, Deshaun Watson, which hasn't worked out. Like the Browns, when it comes to quarterbacks, they do some of the dumbest things. Like Hunter's a generational dude you can plug and play. They're the Browns. I don't trust them at all. They're going to draft
since Bernie. I mean, what have they done?
Since Bernie.
Now, if the Cleveland Browns executive people were running a Texas Roadhouse,
oh God,
how soon before it would go out of business? It seems like it would be impossible. But
yeah, exactly.
if anybody could make that happen, it would be them. Now, who do you attach your fandom to in the pros, Edgar? So we know where you stand with Michigan Lions.
oh, Lions, 100%.
Detroit.
Yes,
Detroit.
let's go.
Well, that's what I wanted. I wanted
go
to
ahead,
say.
Louie.
It was sort of a down period. Michigan was going through some struggles with Harbaugh, and the Pistons hadn't won a playoff game since 2008 when they did have a great run. And your Lions, people wearing bags over their head. Things have turned around a little bit. You have your Lions contending for Super Bowls. You have Michigan winning a championship 2 years ago and vying for the conference this year, actually, in Shamar's first year. And the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, I don't know where they came from.
Where are you with your Pistons? We didn't talk with you about Pistons last week. I guess we all just sort of presumed they would get annihilated by the Knicks. We were wrong. They've been in both games and they won game 2.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, last year, I mean, you may know the stats better than I do, but I'm pretty sure that they may have had the league record for the most losses.
Yes.
14 and 68.
Yes, they lost like 20 something in a row.
Yeah.
That is absolutely insane. But yeah, I mean, just, what a phenomenal turnaround. Super, super exciting to see them come out on top, just as well as the Panthers last night smoking the Lightning. I mean, it's just, hey, we're going to keep pushing. I'll tell you, growing up, I got to see a couple of championships. That was in the 90s, which was really cool because, that was in Jordan's prime, and to be able to see, MJ just float through the air. And a lot of those guys, I mean, there was Isaiah Thomas, Vinny Dumars, the Worm. I don't know if I actually just ran into Dennis not too long ago, which is my
that's
dad.
an experience. I hope it wasn't at the bar at Texas Roadhouse.
My dad scolded me because I didn't wash my hands after I shook his. But
we used to have interviews with Dennis Rodman at this show, kind of a loosey-goosey show we had on the beach at the Tiki Bar, Bamboo Beach Tiki Bar. Rodman was a frequent visitor there because he was getting a free room and and whatever he stiffed everybody on all of the bills when he left the bar. But he was on a drug, Ed Garcia. I don't know what it was. But whatever it was, I want to take it the rest of my life. I have never seen a guy more euphoric in my lifetime. And he could be.
Why not be euphoric, Jeffy?
Well, I mean, but whatever drug, I'm not opposed to it at all. I'm saying I would recommend it, but I don't know that anything could make you feel that good. And Lubie will tell you, he would one night, he would say some of the most interesting, intelligent things about the game of basketball in life, and the next time he'd be whacked out of his mind like he was Timothy Leary. You never know what you were going to get.
Before or after the dress?
That was
before the dress. Before the dress.
Hey, we got Ethan Skolnick coming up, but Ed, what's going on? Texas Roadhouse restaurants? It's always happening there, and you guys continue to expand. You're number 1 in the world now among the restaurant type that you have. But I don't know that you're not in a class of your own when it comes to chain restaurants.
You know, I do feel we're in a class in its own. You know, when you get to a restaurant, and I hate to kind of almost talk about this, but you know, we're approaching or past 800 numbers, you know, across the
Sure.
world, 800 locations.
We're at like
It was
250.
like 600 a couple of weeks ago. What are you talking about?
The part that is at each restaurant, you know, is that we make so much of our food from scratch, and I think that's one of the coolest things. And actually, on Monday, we were hanging out in Melbourne, and we did our annual line dance competition. It's something that I took my 12 locations. We went up there. There's a small team put together, you know, from 6 to 8 people from every restaurant, and it's literally for a trophy because you know when you come to my Texas Roadhouses, you get to see that little bit of entertainment every hour. You know, there's about a minute and a half break, and they line dance just to have some fun, to bring that energy, to bring that culture, which is one of the reasons that I think that gives us that edge. That's why Texas Roadhouse, that number one casual dining restaurant in the world right now, and we're going to continue to hold that hold that that championship, hold that ring all the way through because you know we have that edge. We hand cut our steaks, we make our bread from scratch. You know, we line dance in the stores. That's just, you don't see that anymore. Everybody else has turned into these really cool microwaves that you put it in, you hit a button, and 30 seconds later you're paying $31 for a dish that just came out of that little time machine back there.
Yes.
Insane.
Yes, you are. And Ed, you know, one thing I like about one of the many things I like about the Texas Roadhouse, you always greeted at the door.
Oh yeah.
By somebody, you know, who genuinely cares about, or you feel he genuinely cares about you, and that's what I like. You know, you can you can go to the bar and you can, same thing, go to the table, your server the same way. You know,
Yep.
they make you feel like you belong, and you're not a visitor there. So kudos to you, and kudos to the Texas Roadhouse. And what about Davey?
Davy's coming together. So we're waiting on a letter from the Federal Department of Transportation, but it's inching along.
Nice.
All right, we'll have a spot for Tony.
Transportation. What does that transportation have to do with it?
We just we got to make sure that they're going to let us park there because we got to save room for your Lambo.
There you go. Ed, we love you, man. Thanks so much for being with us. Always a pleasure. Ed Garcia, ladies and gentlemen. Tony? Tony gone too. All right. Never time to say goodbye, right? What was that? That's Michael Jackson.
I got rid of him.
Never can say goodbye. Very nice. All right, Scoop Skolnick scheduled to join us. No sign of Scoop yet, but that doesn't stop us. We will not do anything but push forward here on the program. So, draft day stories. I remember when Randall Hill got drafted at the very end of the first round. Was he the last pick of the first round?
Maybe.
By the Miami Dolphins? And Drew Rosenhaus was relatively new to the scene. I don't know if you remember that. There has to be some video of it somewhere. You just Google Drew Rosenhaus celebration when Randall Hill gets drafted. And I thought that Drew was going to fly out. He was in one of those suites. So I had a remote setup, which was fairly primitive. Who was the guy? Leonard Maltby. Remember the guy, Maltby? Roger Maltby, not Leonard Maltby. Leonard Maltby was like a conductor or something. But Roger Maltby used to have that pack on his back as he was using one of the early primitive remotes, wireless microphones, Lubie. I don't know, did you watch any golf coverage back then? And didn't it seem like he was going to die of some form of radiation because this battery pack or whatever it was that you had to have with you? And we were assigned. I had to run up there with one of those things to try and get some kind of reaction if Randall Hill got chosen. And he was in a suite at what is now Hard Rock Stadium with Drew Rosenhaus and a couple of other people that were there, and they were nervously awaiting the possibility that he would be selected as a first rounder. And how much difference is there, Lubie, if you're the first guy in the second round versus the last guy in the first round? What do you think? I mean, when you get to be Mr. Irrelevant, most agents will tell you, including our good friend Brett Tesla, the agent of the Stars, you're better off not getting picked.
No, after the
Brock Purdy represents that spot pretty well, but you're better off being an undrafted free agent than you are getting picked in the seventh round.
Because you can pick your spot. Like after the fifth round, the money's not that different from sixth, seventh, and undrafted. Yeah. And again, as we've seen with the draft, so often is situation is as important as ability. So if you have the opportunity to pick where you go and you can see what depth is and what the situation's like, as opposed to just getting drafted somewhere where you're stuck with that team until they release you, Like undrafted is a lot better for 6th, 7th round. I end of first to beginning of second. I'm sure there is a difference in pay, but I feel like it can't be
What
that.
about stature? I mean, everybody, oh, yeah, well, that guy's a former first-round pick. That was always a big deal. Nobody ever says, well, yeah, I guess they do mention that. It might have been a second-round pick. There have been so many blunders over the years, too many to chronicle here in just a few minutes. Among my favorites, though, on the local scene that I had to cover, Hill was fairly calm, but Drew Rosenhaus's bizarre overreaction in celebration of his client being drafted by the Miami Dolphins at the very tail end of the first round. And it became kind of an interesting stalemate because Hill held out, and Don Shula was forever pissed at Randall Hill. And I guess he wasn't a big fan of Drew Rosenhaus, especially at the time. Drew didn't have the wherewithal, I guess, that he had as a sports agent that he would later achieve. And I think as he got to that point, I don't know, you don't see a lot of incidents with Drew Rosenhaus, do you, anymore, in terms of being standing with a client who's holding out, claiming that management is evil. You don't see any controversy with him.
He's pretty good about getting his guys through. I mean, they make money and he does well for them, but you don't hear a lot of outside of Tyreek Hill, his guys, you don't hear too much off the field stuff either. He's actually good about it.
Yeah, you don't see him even out there representing, the position that Tyreek Hill is being, a victim of a witch hunt.
No, he stays out of it.
As he's standing there with his wife, who is disheveled and clothes are torn. No, I don't know. I don't know what happened with that. How did the Dolphins brush that under the rug?
Right now, it's been quiet, which is impressive. We'll see how long this stays quiet.
It's amazing, right? The NFL, people used to. I mean, I'm not a big fan of overdoing it because we've seen incidents many times where players actually have been falsely accused, and a big deal is made of it, and their reputation is permanently tarnished. And the retraction is always, like I say, in the agate type somewhere underneath bowling scores. When you finally get a glance of it online, even, and certainly in the days when you followed this stuff in the newspapers. But yeah, I mean, Roger Goodell's done a pretty good job. Does he own the media now too?
It feels like it.
Even silence, you don't hear a squat about it.
Swept under the rug very quickly when it's the NFL.
Yeah. So anyway, I do remember that whole thing with Rosenhaus. That was kind of crazy. The Tim Bowens thing also involved Rosenhaus, where we're covering the draft, and the Dolphins take a guy that nobody had heard of, Tim Bowens, a relative Bob Dylan type, a complete unknown. And people were shocked. They were stunned. They were like, what? Oh, wow. Who the hell is this guy? And I'm on the air with Drew Rosenhaus, who doesn't represent him at the time. The guy's drafted in the afternoon, and Drew is not his agent at the time. Now, by the time you got to the draft, your college eligibility was over anyway, so you could have easily have retained an agent. So apparently, either this guy had an agent that eventually got snookered by Rosenhaus, or he had no representation as he was drafted in the first round, Tim Bowens. And Rosenhaus is on a show with us live as the Dolphins make their pick. I'm doing a radio show from the stadium. And as soon as they announced the pick, Rosenhaus is apoplectic. He goes nuts. He says, I can't believe it. Oh, my God, did they waste this pick? It's the worst. So we're thinking, all right, maybe they blew the pick. I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about this guy to have an opinion either way, to tell you the truth, although maybe it's not advantageous that you picked a player in the first round that nobody ever heard of. And sure enough, I'm watching the Sports Extra or whatever that night on the affiliate where Drew actually ended up being a commentator. And there he is. Drew's got his arm around Tim Bowens saying, the greatest selection in Dolphin history. I'm so happy and proud to represent this man.
That's such a Drew Rosen.
How the hell did you pull that off?
He's so classic.
I didn't even know who he was.
That's amazing.
It was one of my favorite draft memories of the many years that I was stuck out there doing like 18 hours of draft coverage, which included analysis from, and I have to say, I mean, if ever I was guilty of just blatant plagiarism, it was taking that Joel Bushbaum book apart.
Yeah.
Do they even have that kind of? Who has a printed guide? Does Mel Kiper have a printed guide? I would imagine he does. Well, or online, I would.
Online, yeah. To do it because of the way the draft comes and goes, to do a printed one's weird, and especially since it changes so much. These guys do 12 different mock drafts. Like to do something printed to me is sort of a waste. But online, they all have mock draft 1, 2, 7, 12. They all have tons of mock drafts.
Yeah, I mean, any Jet fan can name and point to a zillion different
Oh,
stunners.
God. Oh, please.
The Eric Kumaro pick by Don Shula was one of great mystery and remains to this day. I think he went to his grave where he never revealed what it was that motivated him to take Eric Kumaro in the first round over a guy that went in the second round who was clearly superior as a college player and went on to far greater distinction as a pro in Chris Spielman. I mean, they're in the same linebacking core, Lubie.
Yes, and one was a college great, and the other was a physical specimen.
Who was scouting for the Miami Dolphins at that time? I have no idea, but I mean, I don't care what club you root for around the country. You could probably point to what would be a normal number of, say, early draft busts and bad picks and selections by comparison to maybe late round guys that turned out to be way better than their stature was at the time.
Oh, God. I would say you bust way more than you get hits. I mean, late round hits happen, and the teams that win do it more than others, but it's still rare. Like the early draft busts happen a lot because, again, guys are forced into situations that they're not ready, and so much is on potential and not what, like you just said, like what guys have done so often gets forgotten for a big vertical or a fast 40 or a ridiculous bench press. Like, so often that goes over the tape that wants to get on the field. The tape usually wins out.
You're more of a college football follower than I am during the regular season anyway. It's the one sport that you actually stay right on top of all year long. Why? I mean, is it really that unexciting? The talent that's coming out in this year's draft, that there aren't
It's a lot of linemen.
at least a dozen difference makers as pros.
Last year's receiver draft was like 5 or 6 dudes. This receiver class isn't the same. Like last year, the quarterback class literally had 6 dudes that are all like top 15 quarterbacks, and they all may be franchise guys. Like every team is actually happy with the quarterbacks they drafted, which is freaking rare. And those are the 2, receiver, quarterback, are the 2 big things. This year, it's a lot of offensive, defensive linemen, which for a fan of the Dolphins, which they need both desperately, I like that in a draft. And especially since Chris Greer's horrendous at drafting both, like he could suck at a draft and still fall into someone, God willing. I'm hoping in this kind of a draft, but it's not sexy. Like you have Hunter, I guess Ward, and the Carter kid, and that's really it. Like it's a lot of, again, linemen, and that's not the sexiest thing when it comes to like talking about the draft.
Are these linemen guarantees? I mean, there are a couple of linemen, offensive tackle.
There's a lot of legit guys.
Is it Will Campbell out of LSU?
The LSU dude. Michigan has a dude.
Mason Graham out of Michigan that Ed Garcia mentioned.
Georgia has a guy.
Top 5. Ashton Genty doesn't excite you?
Genty is fantastic. And the year that Henry and Barkley had, where both of those teams would not have been the same without them, he's a very similar back. He's a big, strong back who has good vision. He's almost a throwback where you could keep him in there for 3 downs. I just don't know what to do with running back. Like, I know there was a transformation last year and teams ran more but the last 6 years they've told me running backs don't matter. So like, I don't know, to draft a running back in the top 10 weirds me out. Like, even though the Dolphins need a big, strong back, he'll probably be gone. They're talking about him in like the top 6. He had a ridiculous workout where he's like not even a human being.
Doesn't get past the Vegas Raiders according to this. So, all right. So let's have a prediction here because this particular mock draft, we're going to assume that Cam Ward's going to be the number 1 pick, right?
Yes.
That can't go any other way, could it? Trades into that position, which is seemingly unlikely right now. They're drafting Cam Ward, correct?
Yes, he's good enough in this draft that you go for him and hope it works out.
Will he be worthy of that status, or is he another Sam Bradford?
I don't know. He's not. He doesn't get hurt. Like Bradford's problem was he got hurt all the time. Like Ward's strong. Like Ward's not soft. Like Ward will take hit. Ward, first of all, is good at avoiding hits. Second, he's a strong dude and he's a big dude. So
who would you rather have, Cam Ward or Kyler Murray?
I'd rather have Ward. Ward's a big, strong dude. Ward's like 6'3", like 20.
So you don't put him in that category.
No, he's a big dude. That's why I changed my tune on him. I thought he was undersized, and he just ran around like this. So that's why he does the stuff he does in college. He's a big, strong dude. I don't care how big and strong you are. Like, it catches up with everyone. I mean, that's Anthony Richardson's problem, is that he likes to take chances, and he's not accurate. Ward isn't Anthony Richardson. He's much more accurate than Ward.
He stripes the ball. I mean, he's got a great. I think he has a great arm.
He has a cannon, and he has a nice touch. My issue is just he is greedy. That's literally his only problem, is that he likes to make.
Was he poorly coached, perhaps?
No, I mean, obviously he went to JUCO.
I mean, you know our opinion of Cristobal.
Well, I don't think the Canes had anything to do with Ward.
You don't think he did anything to ruin the?
It ruined him or made him better. I think he is who he is, and he just was in a conference that sucked and faced horrendous defenses all year and allowed him to look really good. I think he's an interesting prospect. I think you take him at 1 and you cross your fingers. Like, look, he is a guy that isn't scared of the pressure. He is a guy that doesn't listen to critics. He is a guy that's willing to lead. Like, the Canes were a disaster before he got there, and he definitely took those guys to a double-digit win season. So you need a quarterback in this league, and he doesn't have the question marks that Shedeur has. And personality-wise, he's not some jerk. Like, he's confident, but he's not arrogant. Like Sanders, you need confidence, but Sanders scares me. Like, his dad, his dad's right there, and his dad won't leave him alone, and that gets in the way a lot. Like, that weirds me out so much.
You probably, if you're an NFL organization, wouldn't want the whole Dion thing,
at least that high,
interfering or possibly even being somewhat of an invasion of what it is that you do with your quarterback.
Like, you brought up the Mannings and how they were with Eli. That was because at the time the Chargers were a really horribly ran franchise, and the Giants were a great ran franchise. But they weren't in his ear. You didn't hear the Mannings. They're not like that. Like, it was purely a business decision. Dion, I know it's all marketing, but I don't know what's real and what's not with him. Like, he just talks the talk a lot of the time.
Yeah. All right, we'll see. I mean, I'm kind of with you. Maybe Cleveland throws the first real stunner out there.
It's just so
that would be great. I mean, that would be the kind of theatrics that you need right away to get the draft to stimulate some kind of interest. Because I'm with you, Lubie. It's pretty flat, all of this draft conversation. I see the countdown clock on ESPN, and they had it like 108 hours away, and I'm thinking, geez, I don't even know if I want to live that long to get to the draft. That's how indifferent I am. And I still enjoy it. Like I said, it's the most glorified example of choosing up sides that you could possibly get. Mm-hmm. Way overblown at one time for what was actually transpiring. I don't know that you always make or break a franchise through the draft, but if you do have, as you say, somebody that you completely mistrust, like Chris Greer in this position, and yet how can you with Chop Robinson there? No, really. I mean, that wasn't a horrible pick.
It was a good pick. No, it
looked like it was when he, it was horrible in the preseason.
He, by the end of the year, was a legit player, and Ken and I both admitted that we were wrong.
Say that again. We were wrong.
We were wrong. Yeah, no,
we're wrong. That's for sure. All right, our conversation show yesterday. It's up there on Bleacher Brothers. It turned out very well, Lubie. Thank you very much for all of your fine assistance there. Getting in touch with these people. There's Pete Aiello, great breakdown and stories. He's got a gambling story on there, a horror story, coming from the Hard Rock of all places. But the stuff that he was betting, Lubie, eclipses anything that even the professor has put together. And of course, he puts this together like Korean ping pong, alligator wrestling. I think he had a WWE fight that he had also used in his parlay. And then he ended up not getting paid on a technicality where it clearly seemed that he was in the right. And then Scott Farrell came on, and I said hello to Scott, and a half hour later, he finished.
Really?
I didn't say a word. I really didn't. It was great.
Did you talk sports at least? Did he get into?
He got into everything. I mean, his career a little bit, and then, he's a huge hockey advocate, always has been. Yeah. He ended up being a play-by-play voice of the Atlanta Thrashers because he spoke about hockey so often on his shows. And but he was great. Very much the same as always, and looking good. So I think you guys will enjoy that if you were a fan of, especially the overnight radio back in the day when that was in vogue. Scott Farrell, probably I mean, he might have been the best at it of
Oh,
anybody that did sports in
Nice.
terms of having his own game and a lot of appeal.
Yep.
And a degenerate gambler back in the day.
Yep.
He was every bit exactly as he portrayed himself on the air. That's always fun to find out that it's not an act.
Uh,
He was insane.
I started listening to him after I knew you, so it made him better in my eyes because you would tell me all these crazy stories about him.
Oh my God, it was.
And when I would hear him, I would actually believe him because you told me that it was a loon.
I mean, he's out there running a golf tournament with naked women for their station promotional golf tournament. So it's classic stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Conversations on Bleach Brothers. We did it yesterday about 10 a.m., which is usually when we have it live. But you can catch that. I know Pharrell had a lot of fans and a big following. So and he's still doing great. Still has the same voice too. That's not an act. It's amazing. When he orders dinner, it's like, I'll have the lamb chop. I mean, I don't know how he does it. You couldn't do that voice all day long and have any kind of vocal cords left. All right, Lubie, you have a great time. We will see you guys tomorrow. We will have a trivia challenge. Dave Gurgles Gurgley back from what we hope is a dramatically triumphant. He did catch some great weather there at Keeneland, so he'll have some stories. And as I said, Pete Aiello with a nice Derby preview.
Nice.
Likes a bomb in the Kentucky Derby, although admittedly, he says that, like me, the big races are not usually his forte, that he's far more comfortable betting the $2,500 claimer at Beulah Park that goes off as race number 3 on a Tuesday. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time as we leave you now that.
The time.
It's 9:06.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done.